Acting Lessons by Dr PinkCake is, well, okay, I'm just gonna say it. It's a porn game. And I'm not saying that to look down on the game, but perhaps a more accurate way to portray it would be to call it an adult visual novel. And despite its heavily sexual nature, I think it might just have one of the best drama-filled narratives in gaming you've ever heard of. Its adult nature makes it a complicated game to talk about though, so there are a few things I need to say about the game before we dig deep into its plot and what makes it so good. To understand what kind of game Acting Lessons is, we first have to understand what an adult visual novel is. It's kind of self-explanatory, but the simplest way to put it is literally in its name. It's a novel with visuals, and it's for adults. And seeing how this game is for adults, there are a lot of mature themes and images in this game. So this is my final warning to you in this video before we continue. We're going to be seeing and talking a lot about some sex shit. There's undoubtedly a social stigma against sexually charged content in our culture. So it's easy to write this game off as some horny adventure without a lot of depth that only serves to satisfy male sexual fantasies. And although I guess that's kind of true to an extent, I actually want to defend this game against its more primal features and tell you why its sexual nature does not rob it of artistic merit. If you've watched my video on House Party, then you know that I've been trying to be more inclusive and understanding of such graphic content in our media. And I'm glad that I have been, because otherwise, I would have never discovered this masterpiece of a game. If the idea of a sex game doesn't appeal to you, just hold on for a moment. I want you to understand that beyond that ick factor is something special, and special things should not be ignored. Acting Lessons has a story worth listening to. I swear it. What begins as a ludicrous sex romp turns into something far deeper, and in this video, we're going to take a look at all 8 episodes of the game to show you just how complex this game gets from its seemingly simplistic beginnings. Acting Lessons, at its core, is a tragedy. A Shakespearean one, even. It initially portrays itself as a light-hearted slice-of-life story sprinkled with a bit of sex and a lot of humor. But the further you progress through the game, the darker it becomes. And this darkness is the game's greatest strength. At the risk of sounding prudish or even insincere, the sex scenes do nothing for me. Personally, they only serve as an impediment and as a stopgap for the story's progression. Like, imagine if you were watching an amazing, compelling TV show and people just start fucking out of nowhere. It'd throw you off, right? But that doesn't mean the sex scenes are bad for the game. It's quite the opposite, actually. Despite the fact that I just said that they do nothing for me, they still serve an important purpose to the story. At the beginning of the game, sexual elements are everywhere. The story takes way too many opportunities to say, you know what you haven't seen in 5 minutes? Dick and ass. But because the game does that, it becomes something you more or less expect. So when it blindsides you with the more difficult themes the game approaches, that's where it hits you in an emotional weak spot. The sexual elements of the game no longer become mere scenes to choke your chicken or flick your bean to. Instead, they become an emotional payoff, and that's when you realize that the characters you've been following this entire time have stolen your heart. And the characters are incredible. There's more to all of them than meets the eye. Every single character is a flawed mess that makes them all the more compelling for it. And it really pushes you to want the best for these thoughtful and loving characters. And you'll love them. You really will. I'm not sure if I'll go as far as to say that they feel like real people, but I will say that the problems they face are very real. And if you've got even a shred of empathy in your body, then you'll definitely feel hurt by some of the things going on in this story. But one last thing before I actually get into the story. I have to mention that there are a multitude of different branches and paths and endings you can take in this game, And because of that, my retelling of the game won't necessarily be the same experience someone else gets. Ultimately, this video will go over the choices and the ending I got during my playthrough, because it's the narrative I thought was the most impactful out of all the possible options. So, without further ado, let's stop stalling and take a deep dive into acting lessons by Dr. PinkCake. And we'll start with episode 1, A Girl Named Megan. The episode begins with a bit of backstory about the main character. He's a man in his mid-30s who managed to hit it big in crypto in 2017, which allowed him to retire at a fairly young age. But before you Doge holders think that crypto will make you a sex fiend like this guy, you're missing one key ingredient: being a book reader, apparently. Also, for reference, I changed the main character's name to Nolan Grayson from Invincible, because using my own name would have been too weird and keeping the default name just felt wrong for some reason. So, we'll be using the name Nolan from now on.
It's okay.
It's not.
Nolan's best friend Liam calls him and invites him to a concert, to which Nolan agrees to since he hasn't been going out much. Since Nolan's fridge is empty, he also decides that he needs to go shopping today for some groceries. And on his way to the store, he reminisces about his ex-girlfriend Anna. And, well, we're like 3 minutes into the game and there's already an absolutely graphic sex scene. All you need to know about that scene is that Anna is wild as hell and she gives a mean sloppy toppy. And Nolan notes that the relationship ended poorly. Though we don't quite know yet at this point what happened, except that Nolan can't forgive Anna for something she did. Anyway, Nolan decides to get his groceries from a shitty store filled with vegan products, and the clerk working there catches his eye. When he goes to ring up his groceries, he makes some small talk with the clerk who jokingly talks some mad shit about the store's products, to the point that she even urges Nolan to go to the supermarket down the street. Before Nolan is able to pay for his groceries, however, a robber knocks Nolan to the ground, and as Nolan pleads for the clerk's life, the robber curb stomps him, and Nolan is put into a medically induced coma. He awakens in the hospital to quite possibly one of the scariest looking women I've ever seen in my life. And although the character models as a whole generally look great, this one is just, I don't know man, she freaks me the fuck out. Anyway, Nolan's best friend Liam tells him that no one else got hurt in the robbery, though Nolan's head trauma put him out of it for about a week. The clerk had apparently also ridden with Nolan to the hospital in the ambulance since she was worried about him, and she also left him some flowers. It is here where we find out that her name is Megan. After checking in with the doctor, Liam heads home since he's been watching Nolan for about a week, and later that day, the nurse returns, though without a uniform because she's done with her shift. We'll now be referring to her as Leia. Leia flirts with Nolan for a bit before revealing that Megan had come by to visit a few times during Nolan's coma, and she promises Nolan that she'll get Megan's information for him if she ever stops by again, which he's thankful for since he wants to thank Megan for saving his life by calling the ambulance. After Nolan tells the police his version of what happened during the robbery, he goes to sleep again and we're met with another sex scene. This time, it's with Leia, and it's thankfully a pretty brief one that happens in Nolan's dreams. Nolan is discharged later that day, and Liam, like the best friend he is, picks Nolan up and helps him in his quest to find and thank Megan. So they head over to the vegan grocery store to find her. It turns out, however, that Megan was fired from her job for apparently calling the police too late. And she's now replaced by the store owner's son, who's a complete dickhead that refuses to give Nolan her contact information. Liam storms into the grocery store and manages to get a number out of the dickhead clerk. And he gets even more bro points when he drives Nolan home and lets him know that he prepared a week's worth of food for him in the fridge. When Nolan calls the number the next day, however, It turns out that the dickhead clerk gave Liam the wrong number on purpose, making Nolan's recovery process even worse as he begins to struggle with a terrible headache. Nolan returns to the hospital to make sure he isn't dying. And luckily, he seems to be okay. But even better than that is that Leia managed to get Megan's number for him. Nolan calls her and they schedule a hangout at the park. And then, this happens. Anyway, they hug and Nolan thanks Megan for saving his life. Though she's actually rather humble about her actions, and she shares how weird it is that she's been worried about Nolan and vice versa, even though they don't know each other at all. And yeah, honestly, I kind of agree with her, but going through a traumatic situation with a stranger would probably do that to you. During Nolan and Megan's conversation, Megan reveals that she's poor as shit and that losing her job was a terrible thing because she's now behind on rent. And because of this, her landlord is threatening to evict her. This poses a huge problem to Megan, because even though she could just move back in with her parents, she came out to wherever the hell this place is because she wanted to pursue an acting career, and she doesn't want to just give that up. Nolan, being the pimp crypto moneymaker he is, offers to help Megan financially since he's rich. Since she can't find a job, he offers her one, being his assistant. She rightfully thinks that's a weird ass offer, but before Nolan can say more, he collapses to the ground and Megan helps him get home with some booty shots. And God, do those booty shots last. Anyway, Nolan downs some painkillers like they're mini M&Ms and Megan helps him get to bed. And lo and behold, there's another sex dream. But y'all don't get to see that. Sorry. The next morning, this happens. Can I just say something before we continue? I know y'all can't see it, but this dude's dick is baller than Caillou. It's kind of insane. Anyway, Nolan and Megan have breakfast together, and she tells Nolan that she's still pretty hesitant about accepting his job offer. She leaves for her acting lessons, and when she does, Nolan calls Liam over to fill him in on everything. Later that night, Megan comes by again, completely soaked by the rain. Total rom-com shit. It turns out that her landlord kicked her out of her apartment and threw all her stuff out, so she comes over to stay since her life sucks. Nolan, of course, agrees and lets her stay over. She takes the bed and he takes the couch. And the most unrealistic thing about this situation to me is Megan just sleeping in her bra like that. Like, come on. We all know how uncomfortable those are. Give her a shirt, my guy. And that's how episode 1 ends. I've got a lot to say already, but let's hold off on that and instead jump straight into episode 2, A Girl Named Melissa. We've got a whole lot more to cover in this game. Episode 2 begins just as horny as ever, so we'll skip over all that stuff and start off with Megan cooking breakfast. And I know I'm making a lot of dumb commentary for a game I supposedly think very highly of, but come on. I've got to say something about shit like this. I mean, bacon and pancakes? That's psychotic. It's not just me who thinks that, right? Anyway, let's move on. Megan explains that she feels like shit because she feels like she's taking advantage of Nolan. But Nolan insists that he has enough money to help her and he's sincerely willing to assist her in any way he can. At his insistence, Megan finally accepts his help, though she promises to pay him back when she finally has an income. Nolan's first offer is to buy Megan some new clothes, since most of hers got stolen last night when her landlord threw everything out of her apartment. She reluctantly accepts, but she is absolutely not reluctant to spend $1,700 of Nolan's money. I honestly thought this was outrageous when I first played this, but looking back at it now, all I gotta say is fuck yeah, Megan, because milking your sugar daddy of all he's worth is definitely the play. I'd do that shit too. But before this happens, we actually get our first glimpse of Melissa, one of our next most important characters in the game. While shopping, Megan calls her best friend Melissa, who we learn has a shitty stepfather who likely would have creeped on Megan if Megan had decided to stay over at Melissa's place instead of Nolan's. The two of them plan a coffee date, with Melissa insisting that Megan bring Nolan over so she could meet him. She's a total instigator and teases Megan about Nolan being her boyfriend, so just keep that in mind for when we formally meet her. Right after the shopping trip, Megan and Nolan meet up with Melissa, who seems to have been waiting for them in the most uncomfortable position possible. Absolute queen shit, sure, but probably would have been awkward to see in real life. During this meetup, Melissa can be characterized as a very, very forward person. She opens up with a kiss, she calls Nolan hot, she plays footsie with Nolan, and so on and so forth. She reveals an important character trait of Megan's too. Megan's innate feeling of guilt every time she gets help. Towards the end of the conversation, Megan invites Melissa over to Nolan's house for dinner. And once Melissa heads out, Megan reveals something important about Melissa too. She pretends to be a wild girl, but deep down inside, it's all just a facade. She's a fake hoe, essentially. Apparently. More seriously, she acts out because her father passed away when she was a kid and her stepfather sucks ass. Once Nolan and Megan return home, Megan enlists Nolan's help with practicing her script for a potential role. I'll skip over the details of it, but Nolan rightfully calls the play trash, so the two of them decide to do improv instead. The two of them play act a dinner date, which starts out pretty jokingly until it gets sort of intimate when Nolan leans in to look into Megan's eyes. As he does so, we're treated with this wonderful expression from Megan. Afterwards, Nolan drops Megan off to her acting class, and while she's there, Nolan decides to go on a lunch date with Leia. Talk about a persistent, unprofessional nurse, right? When Nolan meets up with Leia, she greets him with a kiss. She talks about being an amateur photographer, but other than that, she doesn't have too much more to say except for directly trying to start a relationship with Nolan. I didn't want to be mean and tell her to fuck off, so the lunch date ends on a pretty open-ended note with Leia expecting another date with Nolan. Nolan goes to pick Megan up shortly after lunch, where he sort of meets another one of Megan's friends, a blue-haired girl named Raina. She's a fellow actress like Megan, and she just managed to get her an audition for a play she's also in. Once Nolan and Megan get home, more horny stuff happens involving yoga and a sneaky peek into the bathroom. Unsurprisingly, I'm not letting y'all see that. Melissa soon arrives for dinner with a red mark on her face, which was inflicted upon her by her drunk stepfather Peter. She refuses to call the police since it would apparently only make things worse. So she tells Nolan and Megan to forget about it and instead focus on having a fun evening. And a fun evening they indeed have. During dinner, Melissa shares her distaste for acting and her love for swimming. And after a couple of drinks, the three of them head upstairs to watch a movie. Megan gets tired and ends up going to bed early. And when she's gone, I decide to make Nolan kiss Melissa because I'm an absolute slut. Melissa insists she won't tell Megan, but before Nolan and her go all the way, Melissa backs out because she doesn't want to wake her best friend up. The next morning, Nolan tells Liam about last night's events, prompting some brotherly excitement. Liam then invites Nolan to go clubbing with him later that night, and he also urges him to invite Megan. Though Nolan knows that Megan can't go because she has to practice for an audition. When Megan returns home later, she tells Nolan that her audition for one of the plays went terribly, motivating her for tomorrow's audition instead. She also adds that Melissa told her that she had a great time last night. With that aside, Nolan helps Megan practice for another play. This time, it's a romantic play involving a woman named Jenna who has an unrequited love for her best friend Joe, who's constantly in and out of relationships with other women. The play calls for Joe and Jenna eventually kissing each other, and so Nolan and Megan do that in the name of acting. After the kiss, Nolan awkwardly tells Megan he loves her too, which isn't a line in the script, but it somehow doesn't throw Megan off that much. While Megan continues to study, Nolan goes out to the club with Liam, and it results in a really wild night that I honestly can't show much of here. The two of them meet two girls named Angela and Hedwig and join them at their table for some fun. And when I say fun, let's just say it involves things that would probably give your grandma a heart attack. As explicit as it is, though, I don't mean intercourse. Since I'm a bro, I leave Liam with the two girls at the end of the night, and Nolan heads home early to find Megan sleeping on the couch. She's thankful for all Nolan has done, so she leaves him his bed, but Nolan carries her back there anyway, and the episode ends with a kiss between the two of them. Things are escalating, folks. We've met a few new pivotal characters, and now is when things are going to start to amp up. Let's take a look at episode 3, Memory Lane, next. Episode 3 begins with Nolan being shocked about last night's kiss. He's starting to develop feelings for Megan, and he acknowledges how weird their situation is. On a phone call, Liam thanks Nolan for his actions last night at the club, and he again encourages Nolan to set up a hangout so Liam can finally meet Megan. Later that morning, Melissa appears out of nowhere in Nolan's home at the request of Megan, and she states that she came early so she and Nolan could continue where they left off. Despite Nolan's feelings for Megan, he indeed continues where he left off with Melissa. You can see why things might start turning into a hot mess now. When Megan gets back from her audition, the three characters eat brunch and talk about how well Megan's audition went. And this is where Nolan finds out that the Joe character from Megan's play is actually a woman named Josephine. He's relieved that Megan doesn't have to kiss some other dude for the play. Liam comes by shortly after to pick everyone up to hang out for the day. To Nolan's surprise, Liam shows up with an expensive new car, which they dub the Liam-mobile. After Liam assures Megan that he doesn't drive like a maniac, they take the car for a leisurely spin and nearly die. But it's okay. Melissa loves it, and Nolan is able to get away with holding Megan's hand to make her feel better. They arrive at their destination, a place called the Aqua House, which is basically a spa and swimming pool place, which, if you remember, would be a place that Melissa loves since her absolute favorite thing to do is swim. There are a few scenes I can't show you here because it involves changing into swimsuits, but I'll give you the rundown of some things. Megan was happy about her kiss with Nolan last night since she's starting to fall for him too, and this makes Melissa feel like a shitty friend. But she doesn't tell Megan what she and Nolan did that morning. Meanwhile, in the men's locker room, Liam warns Nolan about the potential mess he's getting into by fooling around with two girls. Nolan takes his advice though, and the four characters head out to the pool for a fun day. They goof around for a bit before having a friendly 2 vs 2 water battle, where Nolan and Megan ultimately win a close match. Nolan seems to get tired quickly though, so they all head to the hot tub afterwards to take a rest. Here, we start to get a little bit more backstory about the characters. We find out that Nolan and Liam met through a fraternity in college where they had some legendary adventures, though those adventures don't get expanded upon until much later. We also find out that Megan and Melissa met in middle school back when Megan was some random ass nerd and Melissa was a troublemaker. Melissa explains how her dad had just passed at that time and Megan comforted her while she was crying. And ever since then, they became inseparable. Megan and Nolan then get some alone time in the sauna, where Megan explains that she's a bit too afraid to commit to a relationship right now for various reasons. Nolan agrees to take it slow, and when all of that is said and done, the the group gets ready to leave. Before they go though, Liam insists on capturing the moment by taking a group picture together. Of course, we don't get to see Nolan's face, but this picture becomes important later on. Just keep it in mind, it's a nice picture. Melissa gets dropped off first, but when they get to her house, her stepfather Peter is standing by the front door. Nolan decides to confront him for his actions, and although Nolan is actually pretty civil, Peter just starts saying some mean ass shit about Melissa and her mom. He even brandishes his gun and says some racist shit about Liam, prompting Nolan to give him a little Street Fighter combo before fleeing the scene. Liam suggests that they call the police on Peter, but Megan resists the idea because she doesn't want Melissa to get more hurt. So, instead of doing that, Megan and Nolan just go to improv class instead. Talk about being dedicated to your craft. Don't get me wrong, Megan's great, but she's a cold ass bitch. She literally tells Nolan to forget all about that Melissa and Peter shit so they can enjoy themselves for an hour. Total stone cold killer. Anyway, we formally meet Raina at improv now, and Nolan gets paired up with her and some dickhead for the first half of class. Raina begins the scenario by welcoming her loving husband Nolan home, to which the dickhead immediately escalates things by making it so Raina is now cheating on Nolan behind his back. This gives Nolan a PTSD flashback, bringing him back to the time where he discovered his ex-fiancée Anna cheating on him with some random dude. She blames Nolan for not being passionate in their relationship anymore. Megan notices Nolan leave the room and she comforts him by sharing something similar that happened to her. 6 years ago, she was dating someone named Nick, and though she loved him, he always made jokes at her expense. Then, one day, she caught him cheating on her with one of her friends at a party. Megan emphasizes how Nolan isn't broken and he can still heal, to which he tells her that he's falling in love with her. She doesn't say it back, but she does kiss him, with this weird ass sucking motion. Raina brings the two of them back in for the second improv scenario, where Megan roleplays as Nolan's girlfriend at an ice cream shop. It turns into a polygamous relationship scenario, and all I'm gonna say is that I've never been to improv before, but this shit is weird as hell. I'm going to hope that things don't always turn sexual at real improv classes. If it does, maybe you guys should go sometime. Afterwards, the teacher pulls Megan aside to talk to her about something. Raina and Nolan have a chat about relationships, and lo and behold, another asshole male character pops into the scene. It's the dickhead clerk from the shop who didn't give you Megan's number in the first episode. Apparently, Megan had introduced the appropriately named Dick to Raina a couple weeks back and they started dating. To which Raina ends up agreeing with Nolan about him being somewhat of an asshole. When Megan returns, she states how their teacher got her an opportunity to audition to a casting agent firm for 2 upcoming films. Raina replies pretty coldly by telling her not to get her hopes up, but she does end up apologizing for being rude. Dick comes up to the group and acts like a fool, and Raina ends up defending Nolan by telling Dick to back off. Instead of hanging out with Dick, Raina says she'll instead be helping Megan practice her lines for their upcoming play. Dick gives the 2 girls a ride back to Nolan's place, but he makes Nolan walk back on his own. I also don't know why Megan looks like this, but it's probably my favorite face she's made so far. Anyway, as Nolan walks back home, he contemplates everything he's done so far. He thinks Megan is amazing, but he thinks he made a mistake by admitting his feelings for her. He really likes Melissa as well, and that makes things way more complicated. Because Megan had been hurt by a cheating boyfriend before, this makes Nolan feel bad about doing the nasty with Melissa behind Megan's back. Realizing what a mess he's made, Nolan cancels his dinner date with the nurse Leia before returning home to find out that Raina had broken up with Dick. Raina and Megan then enlist Nolan's help with rehearsing a scene since it needs improvement. So Raina makes Nolan do the scene with her so Megan can watch. And get this, the only improvement the scene seems to need is for Megan to grab Raina's ass. That, apparently, is how the audience will believe that it's a passionate kiss. I'm not quite sure I buy that, but what I will say is that people will definitely buy some tickets to see that show now. Sex really does sell, I guess. After practicing, Nolan drops Raina off at her house. During the car ride, she shares how being the lead in a play means nothing. And she seems to have a huge inferiority complex because she hates seeing everyone get great acting jobs while she's stuck doing local plays. Nolan helps her be a little bit more optimistic though, and the two of them decide that it'd be fun to rent a cabin for the weekend to get away from all the stress. They agree to round up some friends and make it a done deal. And if you forgot that this was a sex game, Raina kind of implies that she and Nolan could be a thing if it weren't for Megan. Nolan rejects Raina though, and she's actually rather respectful of that. And here's my favorite text in the game, by the way. I remember my cousin doing this to someone on Omegle once when we were younger. They freaked the fuck out. Anyway, back to the story. Liam and Megan both agreed to the cabin trip, and right after that, Megan gets a call telling her that she got the part in the play that Raina is in. She kisses Nolan out of reflex and brings him over to the bed, though surprisingly, it's not to have sex with him. She still needs time to think about their relationship, so nothing except some gratuitous booty shots happen that night. And for reasons you'll find out later, we also get a booty shot from outside the window. On the day of the play, Megan's shoes go missing, but she luckily has another pair she can bring. Nolan drops her off at the theater so he can go pick up Melissa, and when he does, she gets into the car with a massive black eye. Apparently, Peter had just waltzed into her room and fucked her up, so Nolan is gaining a new roommate after tonight. Melissa, just like Megan, refuses to tell the police in fear of Peter retaliating against her mother. Nolan relents and gives Melissa some sunglasses since she doesn't want to miss Megan's performance. When they enter the theater, they suddenly run into the two girls that Nolan and Liam were messing around with in the club last episode. Suspiciously, they mention how Liam vomited when he tried to take them back to his place after the club. According to Liam, he had a great night. But according to these two, nothing even happened. When Liam arrives, he notices what happened to Melissa and he wants to do something about Peter. But again, Melissa is insistent that they just focus on Megan today. Before the play begins, Nolan asks Liam about what happened at the club, to which Liam apologizes for lying about what happened. He doesn't want to talk about it at this time though, so it's time for the play. Raina and Megan kill it, and after all the congratulations, Megan pulls Nolan to the side to tell him that she's ready to take the risk of dating. He agrees, and after Liam fucks around for a bit, they head out and stop by the police station before taking Melissa back to Nolan's home. Melissa is thankful for both Megan and Nolan, and she's thankful for finally being able to report Peter to the police. Megan, while also thankful that Nolan is able to house Melissa, feels bad about being a financial burden, so she offers to pay Nolan soon, which he accepts. Melissa then accepts the invite to go on the cabin trip tomorrow too, and they all decide to end the night early. Nolan offers to take the couch, but the solution they end up coming up with is sleeping in the same bed with only their underwear on. Do people actually do this with their friends? I have to know. Maybe more people have crazier lives than I think. The next morning, Nolan wakes up with a headache. Megan encourages Nolan to go to the hospital before they go to the cabin, but he just says he'll take some painkillers for it. The man really doesn't want to miss his girls' trip, and after last night, I suppose I can't blame him. But the episode ends with a scene at the hospital. The doctor comes in and says that the patient's treatment has stopped working for some odd reason, and he asks the patient if he's told everyone the severity of his condition yet. And the patient isn't Nolan, it's Liam. And with that ends episode 3. Holy shit, right? I told you things were going to start escalating. I know y'all don't like cliffhangers, so let's move on to episode 4, Cabin of Temptation. Episode 4 begins with a flashback showing how Megan and Melissa met each other. I mentioned it before, but basically, Megan met her best friend by comforting her while she was mourning her dead father. It then skips to the present day, where Megan is now helping comfort Melissa about what had happened to her yesterday with her abusive stepfather. Melissa still clearly feels guilty about doing shit with Nolan behind Megan's back though. Meanwhile, Nolan finishes packing for the cabin trip, and Liam calls Nolan to let him know he's on his way to the cabin after already picking up Raina and her friends, who happen to be the two girls from the club, Angela and Hedwig. The group meets shortly afterwards at the cabin, and Liam urges the girls inside so he could talk to Nolan privately. He mentions how there are a lot of women on this trip and there's only one of Nolan. And although Nolan argues that Liam is here too, Liam states that he's not interested in Megan or Melissa, and he thinks that Raina looks like a smurf. Not only that, but it's too awkward between him and the two girls from the club. Nolan again asks what had happened that night at the club, but Liam just tells him that he'll tell him later. So, for now, the two men agree to just have a great time. Everyone meets inside to discuss what to do first. Angela and Hedwig decide that they're gonna sunbathe and drink. Melissa decides that she's gonna go swimming. Megan is a loser who decides that she's gonna practice for her audition while she's on vacation. And both Raina and Liam decide that they're gonna get the cabin all tidied up. Nolan has time to do two activities, and he first chooses to help Megan with her film audition. There's a short sequence of their practicing in which it's clear that the movie is a Tomb Raider ripoff, and at the end of it, Megan and Nolan kiss. Afterwards, Nolan asks Megan why Raina seemed irritated earlier, to which Megan explains that Raina is a jealous person who gets frustrated with other people's success. In this case, about Megan getting to audition for a film role. Nolan says that it must suck to have an unsupportive friend, but Megan knows that she's used to it. Her parents never liked her acting, and they think she's wasting her time with it and would rather her get a medical degree since they're both doctors. This motivates her even further not to fail, as she would hate to go back home and prove her parents right. Which explains why she's so serious about acting to the point that she's practicing for an audition while on vacation. She decides to keep on practicing while Nolan goes on to swim with Melissa next. There, he meets Liam, who leaves to tell Megan a dirty story that he had just gotten finished telling Melissa. Nolan and Melissa then go for a swim, and they share a deep talk about Melissa's worries about her mother, who thankfully managed to escape from Melissa's terrible stepfather. Nolan comforts Melissa about this, but she secretly feels hurt by his support since she knows that he can't be there for her the same way he is for Megan, since she's the girl that he's actually dating, not Melissa. Afterwards, everyone meets up for lunch, where the group decides that they're gonna play beach volleyball next. This is totally an anime beach episode moment, so yeah. I'm not gonna show you all the fan service. But the game gets interrupted when Nolan accidentally rams into Raina, so he decides to walk with Megan so as to not hurt anyone else. Meanwhile, in the background, we get a shot of Melissa looking sad about Megan and Nolan's relationship. Anyway, Megan considers this her first official date with Nolan, and the two talk about their past failed relationships as they sit by the water. Megan notes how this relationship feels different though. Nolan makes her smile, laugh, and feel more confident about herself and her goals. She also notes how nervous she feels about the date even though it feels like they've been dating for a while. She specifically says this because she feels like there's pressure for her and Nolan to sleep together. But Nolan reassures her that she doesn't need to do anything. Megan corrects him and says that it isn't the pressure that's the problem. It's their sexual tension. That's what makes her nervous. And so, the two of them jump into the water and have a weird tickle fight before kissing. I can't show what happens next, but they kind of just rub against each other without actually having sex. It's odd, but Megan gets her rocks off regardless. Megan then leaves and finds Melissa being emo nearby at the lake. Melissa asks to speak to Nolan alone, to which Megan agrees and doesn't ask questions. Nolan asks why Melissa is so gloomy, to which Melissa asks if Nolan and Megan are dating, to which he responds in the affirmative. Melissa, who's justifiably angry, asks why Nolan didn't tell her he was interested in Megan before he decided to smash Melissa too. She feels like she's done something terrible to her best friend because of this. Nolan says that it's all fine because Megan and him weren't dating when Melissa and him had sex. But Melissa remains angry and calls Nolan blind. She says she hates him and she then bursts into tears. But Nolan has no words for her as she storms off. Nolan starts to question himself and his hurtful actions. And he feels bad about not knowing how Melissa felt about him this whole time. When he puts two and two together, he realizes he fucked up terribly. Later that night, Nolan runs into Raina, who tells him that Dick called her and tried to apologize to her so they could get back together. Nolan says fuck that and that Raina deserves better, to which she states that she ended up telling Dick that she and Nolan were dating just so Dick could stop harassing her. Nolan understands why she did that and he hopes that Dick stops bothering her, and they celebrate by getting the bonfire ready. Also, I really hope this is the last time I say the word dick in this video. It's starting to haunt me now. Anyway, they take some shots and Raina tries to kiss Nolan, but he pushes her away because that's a shitload of drama to add on to an already terrible pile. Nolan tells Liam what had just happened, and he says that he finds that weird since Raina knows that Megan and Nolan are dating. He tells him to keep his guard up, and honestly, with how successful Nolan is with women, he seriously needs more than just keeping his guard up. The man needs a suit of fucking armor. Megan and Melissa arrive shortly afterwards, and Nolan makes sure to compliment Megan over Melissa in order to keep things less problematic. The four of them take a shot, and everyone gathers around the bonfire to play some drinking games. Liam suggests Never Have I Ever, which Raina mocks, but Megan thinks could be fun. So, they all end up playing, and Raina, Angela, and Hedwig end up drinking the most because they're wild as fuck. Raina gets angry about this since Megan isn't drinking at all because of how tame she is, so they end up playing Truth or Dare next. Angela asks Melissa if she'd rather sleep with Nolan or Liam, but Melissa tries to decline the question before she admits that she'd pick Nolan. More shenanigans happen, but ultimately, the girls want to take the party up a notch. So they whip out some weed that Megan declines since she doesn't do drugs. On the other hand, Melissa tries to go ham on that joint, but Nolan stops her, which causes her to storm off again. Hasn't she had enough, Nolan? First, you deny her of dick, and now you deny her of weed. What a monster. He even made me say dick again. Megan and Nolan go to check up on Melissa, who ends up puking because I guess she doesn't smoke weed. Megan sends Nolan back to the party though, where the girls try to dance with Nolan, who refuses since Liam went missing. He goes to find him. Meanwhile, we see Megan comforting Melissa again, who gets frustrated that Megan is so patient with her despite her always making stupid mistakes. Megan says that she isn't there to tell Melissa what she can or can't do, but instead, she's there to help her whenever she needs it. This is in contrast to her controlling parents. We return to Nolan, who finally manages to find Liam. Nolan asks him if he's okay, since it isn't like him to leave during the climax of a party. Liam reveals that he has cancer and has been treating it for about a month now. But even though he was initially told that his survival rate was 90%, his body has suddenly stopped responding to the treatment for unknown reasons. The cancer and the treatments explain Liam's recent behavior. Buying a new car, lying about Angela and Hedwig, and being more tired and distant. And to top it all off, his dick doesn't work properly on chemo. Liam explains that despite how hopeful he is, he's been working on a bucket list to do all the things he wanted to do with Nolan before dying. Nolan says that he'll do anything to make everything on Liam's list happen, which lightens up Liam's mood further. They seal their pact, and Liam asks Nolan to promise him something, but it isn't revealed as to what this promise is just yet. We once again get a scene between Megan and Melissa, who decides to tell Megan that she's done something really stupid and she's afraid that Megan will hate her for it. But Megan tells her that she could never hate her. They go inside to talk, and Melissa states that she and Nolan had sex before Megan and he started dating. Megan is super shocked by this, and Melissa immediately apologizes and explains how Nolan never told her about his feelings for Megan, and Megan never told Melissa that she was falling for Nolan. Melissa is incredibly broken up about this, and the both of them start to cry. Megan, however, notes that she doesn't hate Melissa for this, as she and Nolan are still just dating, so it wasn't as if he cheated on her. Megan asks if it was just sex to Melissa, who claims that it was. Megan has known her for so long though that she can see through the lie, and she begs Melissa to tell her if there are feelings involved. We come back to Nolan, who assures Liam that he'll tell the girls about his cancer diagnosis for him since it'll be too hard for Liam to do it himself again. Liam only asks that Nolan make sure that no one gives him pity though. Then, Nolan goes back inside to talk to Megan and Melissa. Megan, who had sensed earlier that something was wrong with Liam, asks what had happened. Nolan explains everything, and the two girls promise to do their best not to give too much pity to Liam for his sake. Nolan asks if they're ready to sleep since it's late, but Megan tells him that they need to talk about something first. Megan says that Melissa told her about her and Nolan tries to defend himself before Megan stops him. She tells Nolan that Melissa means the world to her, and she knows that Melissa has feelings for Nolan, which blindsides Melissa since Megan wasn't supposed to say anything like that. Megan emphasizes that she's never seen Melissa have feelings for someone, so she refuses to be the person to tell her not to explore those feelings after everything she's gone through, and she needs a chance to be happy for once. Megan admits that this puts the three of them in a weird position, since she wants to be with Nolan too. She starts to cry and says that she's willing to give that up if Nolan would rather be with Melissa. Melissa argues against this because she could never hurt Megan in that way. But Megan ultimately says that the choice isn't up to them. It's up to Nolan. Nolan apologizes to Melissa for not knowing that their sexual relationship meant something more to her than just sex. And this hurts him because despite having feelings for Megan, he's starting to realize that he has some feelings for Melissa too. Nolan feels guilty and confused about all of this and says he just can't choose between the two of them, so he joins them in their sadness. Megan thinks the situation is kind of ironic since the three of them are sitting here talking about how much they love each other, yet this love is making all of them sad. She states that love shouldn't make them sad, especially because they all come from broken situations. This gives her an idea. She asks them if they want to try to make their situation work while they try to figure out what they truly want. And by this, she means that Nolan and her continue to date. But at the same time, she wants Nolan and Melissa to try dating too. And once they all figure out what they want, they'll sit down and talk and see what to do moving forward. Melissa and Megan agree that they refuse to lose each other over this situation. So the choice again relies on Nolan, who unsurprisingly says that he's down to try the idea. It looks like hitting it big in crypto was the second luckiest thing to ever happen to Nolan. The next morning, Megan tells Liam that even though he doesn't want any pity, she's still going to ask him how he feels once in a while. And she tells Raina about Liam's cancer diagnosis and his and Nolan's bucket list. Liam tells everyone that he's fine and that even though he and Nolan have done so much over the years, there are a few things they've missed. Megan invites Liam to improv, but he initially refuses since acting isn't his style. Megan and Nolan remind him that he wanted to try new things, and Nolan reassures him by saying that they'll do it together, even though Liam thinks he sucks at acting. This finally gets him to accept, and everyone heads back home. Before Megan, Melissa, and Nolan go back home though, Melissa asks to stop by her stepfather's house first so she can take her things while he's still in custody. Meanwhile in the Liam mobile, Raina starts giving Liam pity by apologizing to him for being sort of rude to him yesterday. And she tells him that he understands that he isn't good about talking about his feelings and that it's okay because she's like that too. Raina opens up to him by saying that she tried to fuck Nolan yesterday, which makes Liam angry at her because he knows that Nolan has been broken ever since his ex-fiancée Anna cheated on him. And being with Megan is the first time that Liam has ever seen him happy since then, and he doesn't want Raina to fuck that up, especially if it's just to spite Megan. He then warns Raina to stay away from Nolan, as he refuses to see his best friend break again. They then arrive and meet Nolan and Megan at improv, where their first scenario is called The Stranger. In this scenario, the four of them have to pretend to be driving somewhere, but one of them is secretly a hitchhiker, and everyone else in the class has to find out who the stranger really is. Something that's weird to me though is that Raina is clearly the fucking hitchhiker. I mean, she literally gets picked up at the beginning of the scenario. Can't the class just, I don't know, guess already? I don't know shit about improv. Anyway, during the scenario, Liam takes many opportunities to make fun of improv and fuck around. So the teacher kicks him and Nolan out for their inappropriate behavior. Nolan gets frustrated by this, as he tells Liam that even though Liam thinks that improv is stupid, Megan and Raina don't. So Liam apologizes and they return to try another scenario. This time, one that Liam comes up with. Liam starts the scenario off at the strip club, but Megan and Raina ruin it for him by making him and Nolan the strippers. Liam tries to change the scenario again, but Megan tells him that improv is all about saying yes, so he relents. Liam gets crazy and makes a dragon appear before he's forced to do a lap dance. But it turns out the teacher is the dragon, so both him and Nolan get kicked out again. Regardless, Liam is happy to check improv off of his bucket list, and the four of them head on home afterwards. Once Nolan and Megan get back, Melissa explains how frustrated she is with her mom for not pressing charges against Peter, her stepfather. This means that the police had to let Peter go. The next day, Nolan helps Megan with practicing for another one of her auditions, but she doesn't feel comfortable with the role since she would be playing a very sexual character. Honestly, this moment is just fan service to show Megan in a Harley Quinn costume, so I'm gonna skip over it. Megan and Nolan kiss like they always do after practicing, and then they decide to join Melissa in bed, where Melissa seems happy to be sharing Nolan with her best friend. As they sleep, however, a mysterious figure approaches the window, and the episode ends. This one was a long episode, so we'll move straight into episode 5, saying farewell. Episode 5 begins with a flashback on what happened with Nolan and his ex-fiancée Anna. It starts with their happiest moments, like waking up together, expressing love for each other, teasing each other, and so on and so forth. Anna jokingly criticizes Nolan for being retired at such an early age, and she tells him to move to a Florida retirement home, to which he tells her that he'd bring her along and that they should finally move in together. She actually agrees to this, and she tells him that she loves him before we return back to the present day, with Nolan waking up beside Megan and Melissa. Liam invites Nolan out for another thing to check off of his bucket list, and Megan suggests that Nolan spend some time with Melissa today since she herself is going to be busy with acting class. Because of this, Megan suggests that she and Nolan go on a date tomorrow instead. When Megan leaves for acting class, Nolan wakes Melissa up and invites her to Liam's bucket list hangout, to which she accepts. He also calls her beautiful, but she finds it uncomfortable and tells him to stop. Nolan and Melissa get ready, but when Nolan goes outside, he gets blindsided by Raina's ex-boyfriend Dick, who, if you remember, was told by Raina that she and Nolan were now dating, and he's angry about getting cucked. Luckily, Melissa smacks the shit out of him with a baseball bat, which sends him running. Nolan explains who Dick was and why he attacked him, and Melissa expresses her concern for Nolan before they head out to meet Liam. Liam surprises them on the street and he reveals that the next thing on his bucket list is getting a tattoo, which Melissa personally disagrees to. Nolan, however, is forced to get one with Liam, since Liam apparently wants to get matching tattoos with his best bro. So Nolan very reluctantly agrees after Liam jokingly guilts him with his cancer. Liam tells the tattoo artist that they're picking a tattoo for each other. Nolan chooses the word bros for Liam, while Liam sneakily tells the tattoo artist to put, this phrase on Nolan, which Melissa and Liam giggle about. Afterwards, Liam heads out to his chemotherapy appointment, which gives Nolan and Melissa plenty of time for their first official date. Melissa tells Nolan that she doesn't really do dates, but when Nolan questions her on why, she doesn't explain her reasoning. So, instead, Nolan suggests that they just go to the Aqua House again to swim. While they hang out, Melissa continues to act weird and nervous, so Nolan finally gets her to open up about what she's feeling. She states that she's uncomfortable with the idea of dating and would rather just leave it at sex, to which Nolan surmises that she hasn't been on a date before, which turns out to be true. Nolan comforts her and says that she deserves better than the shitty hand she's been dealt her entire life, and that dating is supposed to feel weird and uncomfortable, so she should put her guard down and just open up instead. Nolan digs deeper and asks her how she feels, but she stays a bit closed off until Nolan tells her that he's happy to be here with her, and that he's excited to get to know the real Melissa. So she responds by saying that she's happy that Nolan admits that he's happy with her. She's not used to saying such things though, so she gets uncomfortable again and asks to leave. And so they return home. When Megan gets back, she sees Nolan's terrible tattoo much to his chagrin. She doesn't stay long though, and she tells Nolan and Melissa to go and have their first date already. The two of them decide to have a movie night, where Melissa dreads the thought of Nolan bringing up the fact that this was how they first started having feelings for each other. They tease each other about it though, and Melissa tells Nolan that she hates how caring he's being. She decides she wants to try harder though, so she holds his hand and she tries to get him to have sex with her, which Nolan for once actually denies. Nolan explains how he doesn't want sex to be the solution between them whenever things get weird, so unfortunately, they have another failed first date. The next day, Nolan accompanies Liam to his chemo appointment, where Nolan decides to tell Liam about how he's dating both Megan and Melissa at the same time. Liam tells Nolan to be careful and that he's worried about him, Megan, and Melissa because he doesn't want to see any of them get hurt. Nolan doesn't have much to say about this except for acknowledging how complicated it all is. Then, after being spared for like 3 episodes of her presence, Leia, the Uncanny Valley nurse, returns to the story to take Liam in for his appointment. After setting Liam up, Leia asks Nolan if she could speak to him for a moment. She's angry with him for rejecting her through text message and acts like Nolan owes her something. But she apologizes by saying that work has been so busy and that she misses having Nolan around. She tries to have another lunch date with him, but he declines. Leia, however, says that she needs a friend because she's being abused by a new partner or something. But Nolan still doesn't budge because he learned how to be a cold-ass bitch from Megan. Leia moves on after learning that Nolan is dating Megan now, so Nolan asks her how Liam is doing, to which Leia acknowledges that the treatment hasn't been working and if it still doesn't work, they're just going to stop doing chemo and let Liam live his life. Nolan gets angry about this, but Leia reassures him that she's doing her best to help Liam. So Nolan returns to his best friend, who ends up pranking him with the patient beside him named Edna. The two trick him by pretending that Edna is unable to speak properly, and Nolan learns that the two of them have bonded during the past month of their chemo sessions. Afterwards, Liam and Nolan go to check another thing off of their bucket list, going to a nude painting art class. I can't really show you much of this scene, but I can show you Liam's exquisite artwork, which is honestly better than I could do myself. Unfortunately for Liam, the next model is a fat naked dude, which prompts the two best friends to leave and start planning for their next item on the bucket list. They ultimately end up deciding that camping would be fun. We get a scene of Megan and Melissa next, where Megan asks Melissa if she and Nolan have had their first date yet. Melissa explains that they have, but that it was weird because she finds Nolan to be so romantic, which she dislikes because it makes her feel so nervous. Megan explains that this is a good thing, since that means she's falling in love, and that she needs to embrace those feelings the next time she feels them. Melissa says nothing, but she tells Megan that she's been frustrated with so far being unable to have sex with Nolan. So Megan tells her that she needs to open up more because Nolan will never reciprocate unless she shows him that she likes him for more than just sex. Megan explains that she also has a problem similar to Melissa's, stating that she and Nolan also haven't had sex. So Melissa tells her that they both need to step it up from a romantic standpoint. Melissa gives her advice on how to look and act less innocent, and she ends up taking Megan out shopping so she could be ready for her dinner date with Nolan tonight. When Nolan gets home, he's shocked by how much more mature Megan looks, and the two of them have a nice dinner where Nolan learns how much Megan knows about him. She, after taking Melissa's advice, is much more assertive during this date. The two of them talk about what would happen if Megan got accepted for a role on one of the movies she's auditioning for. And Megan says that she doesn't want to think ahead and just wants to live in the moment. She does acknowledge that it would mean that she would have to quit the play and Raina would get mad at her though, and that she would have to move away to shoot for the movie. This makes her afraid to audition because that means she would no longer be waking up next to Nolan every morning. But Nolan reassures her and says that they would make it work, and he would even move in with her if it was necessary. The conversation reminds Nolan of his ex-fiancée Anna, but it doesn't throw him off enough to ruin his date with Megan, which is just getting started. Megan takes Nolan to a hotel room so they could finally have some private time. And, well, you know what happens in hotel rooms. Let's just hope they don't bring back bedbugs to Nolan's house. Anyway, during the graphic sex scene that I can't show you guys, Megan realizes that she should have done this a long time ago, and she finally tells Nolan that she loves him. The next morning, Melissa asks Megan how their night went, and Megan tells Melissa everything. So much so to the point that she even gets down to kiss her. Then, Megan heads over to her film audition, where we see two of the casting agents state that they take any referrals from the improv coach seriously. There's a third casting agent, who, in a surprise twist, turns out to be Nolan's ex-fiancée Anna. She had noticed Megan out with Nolan in the hallway, and it's clear that this makes her prejudiced against Megan as she tells the other two casting agents that Megan is too fat and too ugly for the role. Megan goes inside guided by Nolan's wishes of good luck, and she manages to kill her audition. She did so well that two of the casting agents even say that she's perfect for the role. But despite Anna acknowledging in her head that Megan is good, she just starts talking mad shit about Megan in front of her face. She calls her fat, ugly, bland, boring, and all sorts of other things. And even though the other casting agents try to refute Anna's claims, Anna has the final say, so she rejects Megan and leaves her dejected. Megan tells Nolan what happened, and that's when he notices Anna looking at them through the window. When Megan leaves to go to the restroom, Anna comes out to talk to Nolan, who's still clearly so traumatized by her that he can't speak to her properly. Anna tells Nolan that Megan sucked, but Nolan manages to fight back by calling her out for rejecting Megan just because she's with Nolan. Anna says they can discuss the decision over dinner at her place, and against Nolan's better judgment, he accepts in order to find a way to salvage the role for Megan. Later, we see Raina visit Liam. She basically tells him that she wants to help him fulfill one of his bucket list activities because he rightfully scolded her about what she tried to do with Nolan at the cabin. She states that her mom got Liam some VIP tickets to a rock band show, which means that Liam can finally cross crowd surfing off of his list. He thanks Raina for this, and she tells him to invite Nolan, Megan, and Melissa, because she can't do it herself since she feels like a shitty friend. Raina mentions how jealous she is of Megan since the improv coach has never recommended Raina to any casting agencies, even after 5 years of being in her class. And since she realizes that this isn't Megan's fault, she isn't going to go to the rock concert because she feels really guilty. Liam says that she deserves a second chance and that Megan would feel upset that she doesn't go, so Raina says she'll think about it. We return to Nolan, who is now shown up for dinner at Anna's place. Because Anna is acting all nonchalant about things, Nolan basically unleashes all of his repressed emotions on her by getting angry about how she cheated on him all those years ago. Anna tells Nolan that seeing him today made her realize how much she misses him, and she asks why Nolan didn't fight to keep their relationship together. Nolan says he never stopped loving her, so Anna admits that she was the fool for cheating on him in the first place. She felt like she and Nolan were in a rut, and she only wanted a bit of a change. And now, she realizes that she broke something that she really wanted all along. But the real reason why she cheated on Nolan was because she felt like he never showed her any passion. A passion that was similar to when they first started dating. Nolan, with all of the wisdom he has, explains that love changes over time, and that Anna couldn't have expected all that passion in a day-to-day life. He reminisces about how he wanted to marry her, have kids, and spend the rest of their lives together. But now, at this point in time, he just doesn't love her like that anymore. Nolan tells Anna that she broke him, but he thanks her for giving him some closure by inviting him to this dinner tonight. She tries to kiss him, but he rejects her and attempts to leave despite her insistence on him staying. Anna threatens Nolan by saying that if he leaves, Megan is never getting the film role, and that she's petty enough to make a call in the industry to make sure that Megan never gets a single acting job ever again. She tries to force Nolan to have sex with her, but he leaves knowing the risk he's taking by rejecting Anna. He calls Liam, who tries his best to answer the phone even though he's so tired from his chemotherapy. Since Liam is the best bro ever, he answers the phone and Nolan tells him what had happened. Despite being tired, Liam heads out to Nolan's home to support him. But when Nolan gets there, there's a cop car outside. Melissa's stepfather Peter is here, and he had told the cops that Melissa had stolen his wallet along with some other valuables. But Nolan tells the police that Melissa would never do such a thing. Peter says that Nolan can't be trusted because he's the one who beat Peter up and that Melissa is apparently a druggie. But before Nolan can defend himself, Melissa comes outside and the police officer takes the two of them in for questioning. Melissa reveals to Nolan that she really did take Peter's wallet when she went back to get her stuff, and Nolan tells her that he's here for her no matter what happens. This prompts Melissa to tell him that she loves him. She's really got the best timing, honestly. The episode ends, however, with Peter sneaking into Nolan's home, and only Megan is there with nobody to back her up. Let's see what happens next in episode 6, A Fork in the Road. Episode 6 begins with a flashback to Megan and Melissa's ugly-ass middle school days, where Megan's parents are continually expressing their disapproval of Megan's friendship with Melissa. In this flashback, we see just how badly Megan was pressured by her mother and father to follow the path of becoming a doctor. Not only does she get verbally abused, but she gets slapped by her father for wanting to become an actor. We return to the present, where Megan is calling Raina for help after learning that Nolan and Melissa got taken away by the police. During the call, Megan hears someone break into the house, so she hangs up while Raina calls the police. The police officer driving Nolan and Melissa is alerted of the break-in, but he turns off the call because it seems like he's in cahoots with Peter. Fortunately, he lets Nolan and Melissa go, so they try to rush back home on foot while we see a scene from within the house. Megan's dumbass is hiding behind the bed while Peter's looking for something, and unsurprisingly, he notices her and remembers that she's Melissa's friend. Megan tries to pretend that everything is normal in order to keep him calm, and she agrees to help him find whatever it is that he's looking for. Peter's creepy ass states that Melissa stole his wallet, and even though Megan helps him find it, he attacks Megan regardless. Luckily, Liam storms into the house and starts fighting Peter, but when Peter gets the upper hand, Megan approaches him from behind with a fucking gun to his head, which is finally enough to get him to leave. This chick actually deserves that Lara Croft role after all. Nolan and Melissa arrive soon after, and Megan tells the group that she stole Peter's gun from him. They talk about notifying the police, but Nolan reveals that the police can't be trusted since the police officer that took him and Melissa ignored the radio call for the break-in. Melissa reveals that Peter was hiding heroin in his wallet, and that's the reason why he wanted to find it so badly. Soon afterwards, the cops arrive, but Nolan doesn't tell the police about the gun or about Peter. After everyone goes to sleep, Liam asks Nolan about the whole Anna situation. Nolan is glad to have finally gotten closure with his ex, but it came at the cost of potentially ruining Megan's film career forever. Liam tells Nolan that he did the right thing though, and he heads off to bed while Nolan reconvenes with the two girls. In the morning, both Nolan and Melissa express their support for Megan considering how she had a rough day yesterday with the break-in and losing the role for the movie. Nolan wants to get away from the bad memories of this house for the meantime, so he suggests going on a camping trip in the woods, which is an activity on Liam's bucket list. The two girls agree to this. They surprise Liam at his apartment, but he doesn't invite them in for some reason. While he gets dressed, Megan gets a call from one of the casting agents who wants her to come in again, so she and Nolan head out while Melissa stays and waits for Liam. Melissa then forces her way into Liam's apartment, where she discovers that his apartment is empty save for a single bed. The man is living like a fucking sim. He states that he sold everything he owned and he begs Melissa not to tell Nolan about the state of his home, but she calls him insane. Liam explains how he doesn't need all of his stuff anymore, which makes Melissa realize that Liam has given up on life. Liam admits that his next chemo session will be his last one, as it doesn't seem to be helping him and it's only killing him with pain and bills. Melissa is rightfully angry about his decision, but she comforts Liam anyway and tells him that he needs to tell Nolan. Meanwhile, we learn that Megan has somehow managed to get the movie role even though Anna didn't want her for it. Fortunately for her, the head of casting overruled Anna's vote, and Anna didn't come today because of it. The casting agent informs Megan that filming starts soon, and that not only will she have to travel a lot, but she'll also have to relocate to Los Angeles. She seems weary about this at first, but Nolan gives her some silent approval, which is enough to give her the confidence to agree with the bittersweet proposal. In the car, Megan celebrates about her hard work finally paying off, filling her with an overflow of emotions. You know someone's happy when they don't give a fuck about doing a white girl dance. And I'm not even sure if Megan's white. She's brown as fuck. Anyway, not only does she think about her parents, but she thinks about Raina too, and how Raina might feel about all this. Megan regretfully calls Raina and tells her the news that she has to quit their play. And although Raina is clearly sad about it, she finally swallows her jealousy and congratulates Megan on getting the part. But after their call, Raina calls someone mysterious on the phone. Nolan and Megan then finally meet up with Liam and Melissa so they can head out for their camping trip. Liam brings up another activity on his bucket list, getting revenge on Nolan's shitty old roommate Roy, which they agree to do on their way to the woods. During the road trip, Megan reveals the good news to everyone. She got the part for the Vault Looter movie. Everyone cheers for Megan and the road trip continues. Their first stop is Roy's house, where Liam plans to leave a flaming paper bag filled with his shit at Roy's doorstep. Nolan tells Liam that he's too old for this and that they should just try to talk to Roy. But Liam refuses and they go forward with his master plan. When they get to Roy's house, Nolan tries to convince Liam to do the prank all on his own. But Liam eventually gets Nolan on board by ensuring that he won't need to touch the bag of shit. Roy, however, answers the front door before Liam gets to light the bag on fire, and Liam throws the bag right back at Nolan. Surprisingly, Roy recognizes Liam and he feels glad to see him. Liam pretends that they were in his neighborhood and they just decided to stop by and say hi. Roy recognizes that he was awful in college, but Liam claims that he doesn't hold any grudges. After some more back and forth where we find out that Roy doesn't even remember who Nolan is, the two best friends head back out to the RV, and Liam considers his task on the bucket list completed regardless. Now, Liam only has 3 things left on his bucket list: going on this camping trip, going crowd surfing, and getting a boner. And the first 2 things are already accounted for. The third one would be too if Liam was playing this game instead of being in it. Anyway, Liam informs Nolan that Raina admitted to trying to have sex with Nolan just to spite Megan. And although Nolan believes that Raina and Megan are better friends now after that phone call earlier, Liam doesn't think they can hang out with Raina in a group setting anymore. Nolan moves on from the conversation though, and tells Liam that he doesn't want the last thing on Liam's list to be getting a boner. So he tells him that he'll help him out on that front right now. Liam, obviously, gets scared by this offer and protects his dick. But Nolan reveals that he brought some enhancement pills for Liam. Since Liam is absolutely fucking nuts, he takes 2 without warning and Nolan forces him into the bathroom since they're apparently super potent. This dude's dick is about to explode, and I sure as hell hope we don't see it. Meanwhile, Megan and Melissa are having a conversation about Megan having to move for her film role. Melissa thinks it's great that Nolan is making such a huge commitment by promising to move with Megan, to which Megan emphasizes that she wants Melissa to come with them too. Melissa agrees to this arrangement, but she wonders if that means that Nolan has made up his mind about who he truly wants to be with. She tells Megan that she told Nolan that she loves him, but she hasn't gotten an answer from him yet. Megan also admits that she told Nolan that she loves him, but she only did it while he was asleep. The 2 girls wonder if he loves them both, and Melissa asks Megan if she's okay with that. She seems to be on board with it, as she loves Melissa all the same and that what they're doing right now doesn't actually feel that weird to her. They both agree that the only thing that would be weird would be to have a threesome. It probably wouldn't be weird to Nolan, let's be real, but I agree with the 2 of them. That would probably make things even messier than they are now. Anyway, we jump to a scene where Liam screams in excitement in the bathroom, and he calls Nolan over to take a look, but Nolan rejects him. In response, Liam starts knocking on the door with his dick, but unfortunately for him, he's stuck in the bathroom for the next few hours until his hot dog goes limp. At Liam's request, Nolan gives him a magazine from the RV, Pottery Weekly, and somehow it seems like it's actually working for Liam. Nolan leaves with the 2 girls before we get to find out if those clay molders are enough to satiate Liam's thirst though. Nolan, Megan, and Melissa go on a walk, where Nolan reveals some more details about his and Liam's past. They pledged a frat together in college, a frat called, you're not gonna believe this, DIC, Delta Iota Kappa. Dr PinkCake actually has a game about this frat, and it's something I might decide to explore in the future. I don't know. I don't want to become a porn game channel instead of a writing channel. Fortunately, DPC knows how to write, so we'll see. Anyway, Nolan notes how Liam was never embarrassed or bothered with the hazing that the frat made them do. It's just who he is as a person. A man who acts before he thinks. But for all the weird stuff that he does, there isn't a better person out there to love you, even if he's willing to brand his best friend with a terrible tattoo on his chest. Nolan says that these crazy things make his life better, because Liam always finds a way to create good, lasting memories. And if he's being fair to Liam, the phrase cum slut was actually a nickname for Nolan back in college, but he doesn't explain how he got it. I don't know about you guys, but I think I can take a guess. Anyway, Liam finally meets up with the group after draining his elephant trunk dry, leaving him only 2 more things on his bucket list. They talk about how their camping trip is going so far, in which Liam notes that he likes it so far despite being used to the city. The thing they like best though, is the view they have from their campsite. In this moment, Nolan has a crucial choice to make. He could either spend some private time with Melissa, or he could comfort Megan about her impending move. After a long and hard thought, he decides to spend his time with Melissa. Yeah, I did that. Sorry, Megan fans. We've still got a whole lot to see in this game, so calm down. Their weird little threesome relationship isn't over. Anyway, Megan gives Melissa the go-ahead to go hang out with Nolan while she stays to talk to Liam about her upcoming film role. Liam makes her promise not to forget him once she becomes famous, and she rightfully tells him that he's a hard man to forget. Liam then ponders aloud about how making small little decisions in their lives can change so much. And this makes Megan think about how Nolan entering the grocery store on that fateful day changed all their lives completely. Liam adds that all of this makes him wonder what would have happened if he had done things differently. To which Megan asks him if there's anything specific he would have changed. Liam says that if he could go back and change one thing, he would tell himself to settle down with someone. And even though Megan tells him that it isn't too late, Liam emphasizes that he has cancer and that women wouldn't go for that anymore. Megan comforts him though, and says that the right woman would see past his cancer diagnosis and see him for him. And he jokes that this wouldn't be any better for the hypothetical women. They laugh together, and Megan stays optimistic as ever. There's someone out there for Liam, even if he doesn't know it yet. Back at the RV, Melissa informs Nolan that she brought him out here to have some alone time with him. Melissa questions him if he was serious about moving to Los Angeles for Megan, or if he was just doing it to make her accept the film role. And he answers truthfully. He wants to be there with Megan, and to Melissa's relief, he wants her to be there too. Melissa is happy that Nolan is including her in his plans, because she just can't imagine a future without him in it. This is the most romantic thing she has ever said to Nolan, and because of it, they share a passionate kiss that turns into something so much more. Once again, you do not get to see that though, sorry. The only comment I'll make about it is that Nolan and Melissa seriously go at it like animals. And honestly, Dr. PinkCake definitely knows his anatomy, because I had myself identifying all the different scapular muscles on Melissa's back because of how detailed that shit was. Anyway, after they do the dirty, Nolan and Melissa exchange I love yous, and with that ends the camping trip. The next day, they head back home excited for the concert. Megan and Melissa reconvene about last night, and Megan is proud of Melissa for showing Nolan her true feelings. Melissa tells Megan about how she and Nolan told each other that they love one another, and Megan takes this as a sign that Nolan has figured out how he feels by now. She isn't sure if he feels the same way about her yet, so she decides that it's time for the three of them to have a talk about their feelings for each other. Meanwhile, Liam keeps complaining about his back hurting, so Melissa begrudgingly agrees to drive them all to the concert. During the drive back, Megan attempts to contact Raina since she feels like Raina is secretly upset with her, and she's worried about how she's feeling. Melissa tells Megan not to worry about her because if Raina isn't happy for Megan's success, then she isn't a true friend. Despite Megan agreeing with Melissa to some extent, she still feels like Raina is a true friend to her, and she wants to salvage their friendship because she understands that nobody is perfect. Melissa is amused by this, and she acknowledges that Megan is a good person and it's one of the many reasons why she loves her. And I have to agree with Melissa, because Megan is a far better person than I am. I would have blocked Raina and talked shit about her for the rest of my life if I was Megan. Anyway, they arrive at the concert and Megan hopes that they find Raina there so she can talk to her. Liam, on the other hand, is only focused on crowd surfing. While the girls go to the restroom, Liam spots Raina in the corner of the venue with her terrible ex-boyfriend Dick, and it looks like Dick got beat up or some shit. This totally gives a different meaning to beating your dick. Instead of giving up on Raina, Nolan decides to be like Megan and goes over to confront Raina and Dick. Dick tries to get Nolan to back off to the point of almost fighting him, but luckily, Liam is there to pull him away so Nolan gets a chance to talk to Raina. Nolan tries to explain how terrible of a guy Dick is, but Raina tells Nolan to fuck off because he has no right to tell her who she should date or not. Apparently, Raina had called Dick and she had wanted to give him a second chance. Raina reveals that Dick was being an asshole to one of the guys playing in Battle of the Bands, and that's what got him punched. And this makes Nolan tell Raina that she's making the wrong choice by being with him. He states that she deserves so much better, and she asks who he might be talking about. Since Raina's kind of problematic right now, I'm not quite sure if this is actually a bro move, but Nolan tells her that Liam would be good for her. Somewhere out there, someone is telling Liam that he deserves so much better too. But we'll give Raina a chance. She's just a little insecure, that's all. It's not like she isn't trying to make amends. Nolan gasses Liam up by calling him funny, thoughtful, and a man with a big heart. Raina basically agrees with this, but she doesn't know if Nolan's suggestion makes any sense, as she isn't sure if Liam has ever said anything even remotely romantic about her at all. Nolan agrees, but he tells her that Liam clearly cares about her, enough to the point that he'd give her a cute nickname. Surprisingly, she finds it amusing that he calls her a Smurf. Raina decides to ditch Dick so she can join the group, and it finally seems like she sincerely feels happy for Megan. The real main event is here now though, and Liam finally gets to complete his bucket list by doing the final activity left on it, going crowd surfing. Liam and Raina then chat with each other while Nolan thinks to himself about how lucky he is to have two women he loves with him. He finally realizes what he feels. He loves both Megan and Melissa, and he just can't choose between the both of them right now. After the concert, Liam expresses how unreal it is that he managed to finish everything on his bucket list, meaning that he has no regrets anymore. Liam then mentions that him and Raina got closer at the concert, to which Nolan tells him that he talked to her about that, and that he thinks that the two of them would be perfect for each other. Liam thanks Nolan for this, and that it means a lot to him. We'll see how their relationship will develop later, but Nolan brings us back to our main focus, what he's going to tell Melissa and Megan. He tells Liam that he's going to tell Megan and Melissa that he loves them both, and Liam tells Nolan to follow his heart and that he's happy that he figured himself out. After dropping Liam off, Nolan heads home to tell the girls the news. They all sit down to have the talk, and Megan tells them that she and Melissa have talked about it amongst themselves already. They both love Nolan, but they're unsure of what he truly feels. Nolan reveals the truth. He loves them both, and that because of this, he can't choose between the two of them if it means that he would have to break the other one's heart. Megan and Melissa give each other a smile, and they reveal that they're okay with how he feels. Nolan is confused and thinks that they shouldn't be okay with this, but Megan and Melissa assure him that they're okay with him loving them both, and that the three of them being together makes sense. They want to make it work, and because they all love each other, then it only makes sense to be okay with the situation if it means that it would make them happy. This has to be the pinnacle of Nolan's life. He just managed to keep both girls at once, and with that, they embrace each other for a long future ahead of them. Meanwhile, Liam gets a call from the nurse, as he was the emergency contact for Edna, the lady who helped him prank Nolan last episode. It appears that she doesn't have much time left, so Liam rushes to the hospital, where he just manages to miss her. Nolan goes over to Liam's apartment to support him after his loss, and though Nolan finally notices all the missing furniture, Liam doesn't care to make any comments about that. Instead, he expresses his feelings of insignificance and his inability to change what's to come. And it hurts him knowing that Edna is gone even though he knew it was bound to happen. There was a part of him that always hoped that she would make it, but reality is harsh. He wishes he got to say more than just a regular goodbye to her just a few days ago. But Nolan tells Liam that last words don't matter. Caring about each other is what counts. Liam thanks Nolan for coming and supporting him, and he finally explains how he sold all of his stuff. He reveals that it was a money issue and that it was a pride thing not to tell Nolan. He just didn't want Nolan's last memory of him to be about Liam suffering. Nolan tells Liam not to give up, but Liam reminds him that he isn't getting any better. After next week's session, he's done with chemo. Nolan tries his best to pay for Liam's treatments, but Liam says that it isn't about the bills anymore. He just wants to be able to enjoy what's left, and if he keeps getting chemo, he's just going to end up falling apart. He asks if Nolan is okay with his decision. his decision to be remembered as Happy Liam. Nolan says that he'll remember every stupid, funny, or mundane thing he's ever done with Liam, and that he won't let Liam suffer. He's going to help him every single bit along the way. And with that, the two brothers hug each other. When Nolan drives back home, he's met by a terrible sight. His house is on fire, and Megan and Melissa are still inside. Shards of glass cut Nolan as he punches his way into the house to rescue the girls. And as he dodges past fire and smoke, he sees the two girls pass out on the floor of the living room. All the smoke is making Nolan too dizzy, and that's when he realizes that he only has time to save one of the girls. Ultimately, Nolan chooses to save Megan, and the last thing he says to Melissa is that he's sorry. And with that, the episode ends. I've got nothing funny to say, so let's see what happens next in episode 7, Limbo. Episode 7 opens with a scene at the office of a therapist named Jessie. Her receptionist James notes how one of Jessie's patients has been here for about an hour already, and she knows that he's likely going to be her patient for a really long time. In case it isn't obvious, the patient is Nolan, and the dude is standing in the room looking like a creep with his hood on. As a former high school English teacher, I just want to tell this guy to put that shit down. Anyway, it's revealed that 2 weeks has passed since the tragic incident, and Jessie is attempting to bring Nolan's pent-up emotions about it to the surface so he can begin to heal again. Nolan cries thinking about the fire, so Jessie reminds him that he's in a safe space, which manages to bring down Nolan's barriers enough to start the therapy process. Jessie first gets him to recount everything that happened that night. Nolan kind of describes how his life has been on autopilot ever since the incident traumatized him, and that it's a way to shield himself from emotional distress. After saving Megan, Nolan manages to inform a firefighter that Melissa is still in the house, so they rescue her and rush all three of them to the hospital. Nolan is in shock, Megan suffers from carbon monoxide poisoning, and Melissa is barely hanging on with 4th-degree burns. She unfortunately doesn't make it. During this recounting of events, Nolan explains how he would welcome death if it was as peaceful as the time he was unconscious, most especially because in all of his waking moments, he can only remember how he had to make a terrible choice in which he had to save either only Megan or Melissa. Anyway, if there's only one thing I can relate with Nolan on in this game, it's when he drifts into consciousness and gets scared shitless at the sight of Leia. Okay, he didn't actually get scared. He's more so just screaming because he's in shock. But I got scared. And if you didn't get scared too, you're fucking lying. While Nolan was in the hospital, Liam again came to comfort him just like in the first episode of the game. But Nolan just doesn't say anything to him no matter how many good memories Liam shares with him. Raina is there to support Nolan and Megan too, and she wonders if it was Peter who caused the fire. But Liam is unsure. He shares her suspicions though, and he ended up telling the police the truth of what happened the night that Peter broke into Nolan's house a few episodes back. Also, we learned that when Megan woke up and found out that Melissa was dead, she became hysterical enough to the point of needing to be sedated again. Liam asks Raina to watch over Nolan and Megan while he goes to his last chemo appointment, but she refuses to let Liam go through that alone, so she accompanies him there. Apparently, Nurse Leia is always over an hour late to Liam's appointments, which enrages Raina to the point that she grabs another nurse to administer Liam's chemo. Leia arrives and is upset that the other nurse took her patient, but the nurse insists that Raina was persistent and that it's his final treatment anyway. When Liam throws up as a result of the chemo making him sick, he explains to Raina how he used to get this way when he first started treatment, but not so much anymore. Anyway, a clearly fucked up Megan wanders her way over to Nolan's bed, where she asks Nolan why he chose to save her and not her best friend. She tells him that she loves him and that she's hurting so much, and she needs him to snap out of it because she needs him right now. She wants him to tell her that everything will be okay, because she feels hollow. But unfortunately, this isn't enough to wake Nolan from his shock. He just doesn't want to wake up, even though he recognizes that Liam and Megan need him. Nolan has a weird out-of-body experience where he sees himself crying and then refusing to recognize that Melissa is dead. But when he can't hide from the truth any longer, he snaps back to the therapy session where he starts hysterically crying. Jesse calms him down by reminding him that his feelings are all just chemicals in his brain triggering these emotions. And after taking a quick break, Nolan returns to his mind and tries to remember what happened. After Liam finishes his chemo session, he goes to remind Nolan that he loves him and that he's here for him. This actually gets Nolan to talk, and he asks how Liam can remain so calm and collected in times of strife. Liam says that he isn't as strong as Nolan thinks, and that he cried a lot while Nolan was sedated. He says that recovering will be tough, but Nolan will get better. Liam emphasizes that Melissa's death wasn't Nolan's fault. And although Nolan tries to argue that it was his fault because he couldn't save both Megan and Melissa, Liam tells Nolan that he shouldn't be focusing on that right now. He says that as harsh as it may sound, Nolan followed his heart and chose to save the girl he loved most. And that girl needs him more than ever right now. This doesn't mean that Melissa didn't mean anything to Nolan, but Nolan needs to be strong for Megan so they can be there for each other during such a hard time. Megan comes in shortly after, and the two of them embrace while expressing their love for each other. They wonder what the hell happened that night to cause the fire, and Nolan thinks on the same line that Raina and Liam did. It must have been Peter. Megan explains how she doesn't remember what happened during the fire or what might have caused it. She only remembers talking to Melissa about how happy they were that they were going to move to LA together. Megan tells Nolan to leave the investigation to the police, but Nolan reminds her that the police can't be trusted since they were working with Peter. He tells Megan that they have to return to the house to investigate, but Megan refuses and tells him that Liam is going to house them for the time being. Nolan goes back to the house anyway, and he notices that there's no sign of forced entry. None of the windows are broken save for the one he broke to save Megan, and the front door was locked. This means that the suspect, likely Peter, was in the house the whole time. Nolan wonders what Peter's motivation might have been. Was it to get revenge on Melissa and Megan? Was it to recover his gun? Why didn't he wait to kill Nolan too? Nolan pieces all the circumstantial evidence in his head together and decides that the perpetrator of the fire was Peter. So he grabs the gun that Peter failed to find and heads over to his house full of anger. Nolan sneaks into Peter's home where he finds him passed out from his drugs. But instead of shooting him or leaving the investigation to the police, he gives Peter an overdose. He figures that killing a murderer is worth it, but he doesn't tell the therapist that. He just tells her that he came to his senses and left. This ends Nolan's therapy session, and Jessie congratulates him on getting through such a hard session. She insists that Nolan take extra medication tonight, to which he agrees to, and Liam picks Nolan up afterwards. During lunch, Liam reminds Nolan to take one day at a time, for as long as it takes. Nolan thinks he's going crazy, but Liam says that it's just part of the healing process, and that he's proud of him for his progress in therapy. Nolan explains that it doesn't feel like he's living anymore, to which Liam tells him that he needs to keep doing therapy if he wants to get better. So Nolan returns the next day. Nolan tells Jessie that the extra medication didn't help him. He woke up screaming from another nightmare, but it's of something that happened after Melissa's death, which will be illuminated upon later. Jessie tells Nolan that it's going to be a hard therapy session today, but it's a very necessary one. And Nolan agrees to this because he wants his life back, so he closes his eyes and remembers what happened again. After killing Peter, Nolan returned to Liam's apartment, where Liam had set up a bed for Nolan and Megan. Megan asks where he had went, and Nolan only mentions that he was looking for evidence at the old house. Liam leaves the two to talk, and Megan talks about how she misses Melissa's dimpled smile and her wonderful vanilla scent. Most of all, though, she misses her presence, and she doesn't know how she can continue living after all this. Nolan tells her to take it one day at a time, and even though he hates the cliché, he still believes that it has merit to it. He explains how each day adds up and makes things better, and even though you don't go back to being the same person again, you move on. This dude needs to take his own advice. Like, seriously. Anyway, Megan mentions how she can't start shooting the movie she got casted in anymore after all this. But Nolan tells her to do it for Melissa. He says how Melissa would have slapped her and wouldn't have let her give up on her dream. And this manages to make Megan laugh for the first time after so long. After Megan falls asleep, Nolan goes up to Liam since the two of them can't sleep. He notices that Liam had given them his mattress and that he's only sleeping on a wooden frame. And this just goes to show that Liam is the best character in this game. Liam rightfully asks why Nolan is all dressed up, and Nolan explains that he's gonna go on a walk to clear his head. He then expresses how glad he is that Liam wasn't alone during his chemotherapy session, and the two of them give each other a tight hug before Nolan heads out. During this walk, Nolan runs into Leia, who invites him over to her place since he needs someone to talk to. She gives him some hard liquor that she herself doesn't drink because she wants to stay sober to take care of him, and she gets Nolan to vent about what happened. Nolan first apologizes for not being a better friend to Leia after rejecting her when he fell in love with Megan. But like, he shouldn't apologize for that shit. She was breaking some mad unprofessional boundaries, man. Anyway, he talks about the tragic incident that befell him, and he expresses how he feels responsible for everything that happened and that it's making him go crazy. He just doesn't know what to do anymore. He says that he needs stability in his life and he fears he'll never find it. And that's probably the worst thing he could have said, since that puts Leia into total predatory mode. She asks Nolan if he's just going after the wrong type of women. And for some reason, Nolan thinks this might be possible since he's been so lost ever since he broke up with his ex. Leia asks if Liam has actually been helpful to Nolan. And although Nolan says that he's been by his side since forever, Leia tells Nolan that Liam just enables him to go after all these shitty women. Leia then gives Nolan advice in the weirdest way possible. She calls him a lost lamb that ran far away from home, and he's trying desperately to find his way back. At the sign of any light, he runs that way and thinks it'll bring him home, but it never does. Meanwhile, the farmer is trying to bring him home, but he just keeps running away. In case you don't get her wild-ass metaphor here, she's calling Nolan the lamb who keeps chasing after different lights that don't bring him home, particularly Megan and Melissa. Meanwhile, Leia's the farmer trying to bring him back home, and that she loves him. If Nolan could only realize that, then he would finally find his happiness and his home. Nolan doesn't catch the hint though, so Leia places her hand on his thigh and asks him if he would ever reconsider them being in a relationship. Nolan basically says hell nah, but Leia insists that if he gives it a try, he'll realize that they're meant for each other. Nolan says that Megan is the farmer to his lamb and he brushes Leia aside. So Leia goes off to do something for a moment. Megan calls Nolan worried about where he's been, but he explains how he went to Leia's place to clear his head. He gives her Leia's address so she can pick him up. Back at Leia's house, Nolan notices something. Leia's shoes look just like the shoes that Megan lost the day before her first show. She even has the same bag as Megan. He decides to head out, but as he looks for Leia to let her know that he's leaving, he stumbles upon a room. And what he finds there is super fucking disturbing. He finds pictures of Leia sexually assaulting him while he was in a coma during the first episode of the game. And it turns out that he didn't dream of it at all. It was actually real. Remember when Leia mentioned that she dabbled in photography as a hobby? Yeah, that throwaway line from 5 episodes ago is a Chekhov's gun. Leia also has pictures of everything Nolan has been doing for the past 6 episodes. From his club night with Liam, to his intimate encounters with Megan and Melissa, and Leia even has a picture of Megan and Melissa passed out on the floor before the fire. This only means one thing. She was the perpetrator of the fire. And when Nolan realizes this, Leia comes into the room with a syringe and knocks him out cold, ending the episode. We've got 1 episode left of this game. Will Nolan make it out alive? Let's find out in the finale, Episode 8, Acting Lessons. Episode 8 begins with scenes that show us what Leia has been secretly doing in the past 7 episodes. It's revealed that during the first episode, Leia grew an obsessive attachment over a comatose Nolan, and as a result, she created a copy of Nolan's keys while he was unconscious at the hospital. As he sleeps, she confides in him that she fears that their relationship will be over once he wakes up. And this isn't the first time that she's done this. She scared the last man away, but she vows to make sure that she doesn't scare away Nolan too. Later, we see Liam visit Nolan in the hospital for the first time. Leia and Liam already know each other since she's the nurse who administers his chemo. But when Liam tells an unconscious Nolan that he's supposed to bang bitches instead of his head, this angers Leia. In the privacy of her home, Leia begins to suffer as soon as Megan moves in with Nolan. She spies on them slowly becoming intimate with each other, and she gets angry at Nolan for picking young and ugly girls. She thinks that mimicking Megan will make Nolan like her, so she steals Megan's shoes before the play, which Leia also spies on. If you remember back in episode 3 right after the play, Megan and Nolan tell each other that they're ready to try dating one another. And this moment is what makes Leia even more unhinged than she already is. She continues to spy on Nolan, and when she notices Melissa get added into the mix, Leia has some choice words for the women before vowing that she's going to take their place. We return to the present day, where Leia slaps Nolan awake and reveals herself to be wearing Megan's clothing. Unfortunately for Nolan, Leia has managed to capture Megan too, who had come to pick up Nolan. Leia goes full-on psycho and tells Nolan that she'll figure out a way to resolve this mess and ensure that Nolan stays with her. But first, she needs to get rid of Megan. When Nolan expresses concern for Megan, Leia blows up on him until Megan wakes up, diverting her attention back to Megan. Leia blames her problems on Megan and begins attacking her. And she soon leaves to find some torture tools, which gives Nolan and Megan some time to speak. Megan is bound too tightly by the rope, but Nolan has enough wiggle room to be able to do something if Megan can find something in the room they could use. She spots the gun that Nolan brought over to Peter's house, but neither of them can get to it. Nolan then reveals to Megan that Leia was the woman who killed Melissa, and this revelation spurs Megan into action. She orders Nolan to tip his chair over, and even though he succeeds, he has to get back in the chair since Leia has returned. So Megan tells Nolan to get his hands loose in the meantime. Leia starts waving her scalpel around their faces, and when Nolan commands Leia to leave Megan alone, she only gets further motivated into mutilating Megan, suggesting that she'll start with either her eyes or her nose. Leia asks Nolan what his favorite thing about Megan is, implying that she'll cut that off first. But when he begs Leia to stop, Megan counters by telling Leia that she knows what part she would like to cut off of Nolan first. Nolan is confused by this, but Megan's comment intrigues Leia. Leia believes that there's tension between Nolan and Megan responds in the affirmative. Nolan thinks back and realizes that Megan is doing improv right now, and he follows her cue by getting angry at her and calling her a slut. Nolan and Megan then have a back and forth insulting match, with Megan telling Nolan that she'll cut his dick off for sleeping with everyone he can. This buys Nolan enough time to free himself from his restraints. But Leia isn't fooled by their acting. She knows that Megan is an actor. Megan tells Leia that she isn't faking it, and that she should just go ahead and cut Nolan. So Leia commands Megan to prove it by giving her the scalpel to cut Nolan herself. At gunpoint, Megan arms herself with the scalpel and gets ready to slash Nolan. But at the last moment, she smashes the single light bulb in the room, turning the room pitch black. Leia fires some random gunshots in the dark. And a few moments later, we see Nolan leave the room first, blood all over his hands. Luckily, Megan comes rushing out soon after him, and the two lovers embrace before we're met with a scene of the police coming to help them out. Nolan and Megan express their love for each other before Nolan tries to blame himself for Melissa's death again. Megan, however, ensures him that it wasn't, and that Leia is to be blamed for all of this. Nolan then spends more than a year going through therapy, and we get a scene of his final session with his therapist Jessie. He brings her some flowers in celebration of his final session, and Jessie thanks him before she gives him a rundown of his time with her as her patient. Nolan has managed to overcome so much over the past year, and he acknowledges that while it still hurts to think about his trauma, he's come to terms with the pain. He doesn't blame himself anymore, and he's managed to move on. He still sees Leia in his nightmares, but memories of her don't haunt him while he's awake anymore. They sure as hell haunt me though. Nolan then talks about his ex-fiancée Anna, who he met while he was an IT worker. Apparently, she had freaked out over some files she thought she deleted, but Nolan managed to save her files since she only deleted the shortcut to the recycle bin. After helping her out a few more times in the coming weeks, they ended up dating before Nolan eventually proposed to her years later in the same spot as their first date. Nolan finally acknowledges that he did some wrong in his relationship with Anna. He became complacent and started focusing more on his hobbies instead of spending time with her, which led to her cheating on him just so she could get some sort of emotions out of him. Instead of dealing with his emotions, however, Nolan ended up burying them inside of himself. If he were to see Anna today, he would forgive her for what she did, because he truly loved her and he just can't forget any of the great memories they shared together. Nolan and Jessie then talk about Liam, and we finally get to see the promise that Nolan made to Liam back in episode 4 at the cabin. Liam makes Nolan promise him that if he were to pass away, Nolan would bounce back and continue to live, because Liam would be looking down at him, laughing along with him no matter what it was he chose to do. Luckily, he didn't need to keep his promise, because thanks to Reyna, Liam was able to live. It turns out that Liam's final chemotherapy sessions showed promise, so much so that he started going again. Over the following months, he managed to improve enough to be in remission. Leia, who was his nurse, was secretly screwing with his treatment after she found out that Liam was enabling Nolan's bad habits, which led Liam and the doctors to believe that chemo wasn't working for him. Because Reyna got the other nurse to administer Liam's treatment on that fateful day, Liam was able to continue treatment and live. He, Reyna, and Nolan then cry tears of joy from the good news. Nolan expresses to Jessie just how much he loves Liam for his heart of gold, and he's happy that Reyna is there for him now to balance him out as his partner. We then get an update on Megan, who pushed through her trauma and went to Los Angeles without Nolan so she could focus on her movie. She was about to quit the film until Liam convinced her not to. And although Megan didn't go through therapy like Nolan did, Jessie, who we learn is actually Reyna's mother on top of being a therapist, reasons that Megan's acting was a form of dealing with her trauma. While Megan was out touring the world for her job, she still called Nolan every single day, and after a few months of filming, she returned home to surprise Nolan that she only had to shoot in LA now instead of moving around every few weeks. So, every other week, Nolan went to live with Megan in LA before returning back home to spend time with Liam and Raina. His new apartment didn't feel like home though, and Liam's suggestions only made the place look worse. But, after Megan secretly finished filming her movie, she and Liam threw Nolan a surprise party one day where she revealed that she's coming back to live with him now. They have a wonderful night filled with love and laughs, but it ends with a little bout of revenge from Liam, who sneaks some enhancement pills into Nolan's drink. He and Raina leave Megan and Nolan alone to themselves, and with the help of the super potent pills, Nolan and Megan have an extremely steamy night. It's so damn steamy that Megan even gets pregnant. It's revealed that the baby will be a girl, and Nolan and Megan instantly look at each other and say the name Melissa. It's a tender moment, but I can't help but feel that it's a little weird for Nolan to name his kid after someone he was fucking. Nolan explains to Jesse how he and Megan always talked about Melissa, but every time they thought about her, they would feel guilty since they didn't feel like they gave Melissa the farewell she deserved. And so, Nolan tells Jesse that today is the day they're going to have a proper memorial for Melissa in a place that means a lot to them. Jesse congratulates Nolan on his progress and gives him one final hug. And with that, Nolan leaves the therapist's office. He cries as he leaves, and he passes by a poster advertising Megan's new movie. As he walks, he thinks about how he's ready for new challenges ahead of him. He then passes by a storefront playing the news, which reveals that the corrupt cop helping Peter got locked up in jail for 34 years. They never find out that Nolan was involved in Peter's death, however. Liam, Raina, and Megan then come pick Nolan up, where they then head over to the special spot that Nolan was talking about to give Melissa a proper burial. They return to the willow tree near the camping site they visited in episode 6, where we get one of the most beautiful tributes to a character in video game narrative history. Megan spreads Melissa's ashes as Nolan ponders to himself, wishing that he could make this story better. He acknowledges that life is tough and merciless, and the only thing you can do about it is control how you react to it. He states that even if life hurts you, you shouldn't let it break you. He then notes how Melissa had a terrible life and that she deserved better than the ending she got. He turns to Megan, mentioning how she never left Melissa's side no matter what, and that he's going to do the same for Megan. After accepting his proposal, Megan grabs Nolan's hand and the two couples look on to the horizon, where Nolan emphasizes that life isn't over for them yet. In honor of Melissa, he shares a beautiful poem and we get one last touching look at Melissa's memorial. It goes as follows. Meet me where the sun grazes the ocean, where both wind and water touches the ground. When all comes around, beneath the willow on the mound, I will rest my weary head for a while. The game ends with Nolan and Megan's wedding, where Nolan thinks back to all of the memories that led to his and Megan's eventual love for each other. Nolan's final line is a firm, confident, I do. And with that marks the end of the game Acting Lessons by Dr PinkCake. I want to make a note here that Acting Lessons isn't a flawless game. Nor is it a game that's necessarily worthy of winning the Pulitzer Prize for its writing. What it is, though, is a story that makes you feel. And if you've been following my channel for a while now, then you know that aspect is what I value the most in all forms of art. Whether it's a video game, a book, a TV show, or whatever. Acting Lessons makes you think about the important and special people in your life and the memories you have with them. It makes you think about the choices you make and how those choices can drastically change the trajectory of your life. More importantly though, I think that Acting Lessons might be one of the most important pieces of adult content ever created. And I'm not exaggerating. Dr. PinkCake has created something that proves that sexually mature art can be and should be looked at with a more respected, critical lens. Acting Lessons is pornography, yes, but it's also so much more, so long as you open your mind to the idea that such a genre can lead to insightful social commentary. We must be more comfortable as a society to discuss things like sexual liberation, sex positivity, and all other things to do with sex and relationships. If we aren't open-minded about the complexities of sex and relationships, then we're ultimately being closed-minded about the nature of love. And that can be a dangerous thing. For example, Nolan's polyamorous relationship with Megan and Melissa is a concept that I do not have any real-life experience with or even any scholarly knowledge about. So it would be ignorant of me to be dismissive or overly critical of it in any capacity. Even though polyamory isn't my thing, being open-minded and knowing more about it is important. Because at the end of the day, polyamory is important to other people. And learning to be less judgmental about others is something that our culture desperately needs. That's why Acting Lessons is an important game. If it can make you look past your social programming on what you deem to be normal in our society, then it did its job. We have to look past social stigmas and remember one thing. We can learn so much more about each other, and we can be so much kinder. Maybe Acting Lessons isn't the best game ever made, but if it can make you think more deeply about things you don't normally think about, then it's something worth putting your time into. It's a beautiful experience from start to finish, and I sure as hell am glad I gave it a shot. If you enjoyed this long mess of a video, don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content similar to this. I make videos about all things writing related. While you're here, I'd also like to thank my patron Edith Lopez Torres for helping make this video happen. If you'd also like to support me further, please check out my Patreon. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And if you've got some time, check out some of my other videos too. I really appreciate you watching this one. And to everyone who made it to the end here, thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.